Hello and welcome to Tech. Today, I'm Ryan Joe. I'm Ryan Joe every day, and we've got Jeremy Nees from the Distillery, and we've also got David Downs joining us. Welcome, David.
Kia ora. Nice to know that you know your own name, Ryan. I mean, I don't know what you've been doing.
Good start. So today we're going to be talking about Kiwi Innovation. So, David, based off what you've been up to?
Jeepers, that's a big question. What have I been up to since lockdown, or in general? Because I guess, but so
just in general.
In general, mate. I'll give you a bit of background about me. So I am I know Mike and the team from the Distillery, and all good people, good mates. And I work in my full-time job, or my day job. I work for the New Zealand government, for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, helping businesses grow internationally. And in particular, I look after our work with some of the technology sector and in Agrotech in particular, so agricultural technology. I've been doing a lot of work on lately. But since lockdown, I also have been doing a little side project called SOS Business, which is trying to help small businesses stay alive during the shutdown period. So hopefully we can talk about that. And in previous iterations of my life, I'm on a lot of boards and I do some charity work, and I've written a few books about innovation and ingenuity. So not all of them, just a few of them. I don't want to, put on airs and graces. I've only written some of those books, not all of them. So there you go.
It's an awesome concept. Could you tell us a little bit about this before we get into it?
Oh, the SOS Business. Thank you very much for asking, my word, and now a word from our sponsors. So essentially, a couple of weeks ago, I when we were going to lockdown, I was sort of thinking about the little cafe owners and restaurants and bars and stuff, and how they're kind of this really part of our fabric of our society. And I thought, well, in fact, I was talking to someone and thought, well, we could jump online and sort of buy the lunch that we would normally buy. We'd, go out and buy coffee or lunch, most days or something. But unfortunately, most of the cafes and restaurants couldn't sell. They just don't have any ability to sell you a voucher or a future gift card or something like that. So I thought, I can do that. And I jumped online, and my son, who's a bit of an IT guy, will be laughing now because he thinks I'm a bit of a dinosaur. But I used to be, in my day, I was a bit of an IT guy. And I whipped up a little website and started selling vouchers for the cafes down the road. And 2 or 3 days in, we were getting massive numbers, bigger, more and more cafes wanting to join, more and more orders coming through. So it was pretty cool. And then it started to really outgrow the system. So we switched it over to Shopify, which has been an amazing move. And that was 3 weeks ago. As of today, we've got 2,500 companies, small businesses on there. So restaurants, bars, cafes, hairdressers, nail salons, tattooists, all sorts of those little small companies and businesses. And they're selling, $5, $25, $100 vouchers for future services. So, buy a $100 voucher now and go and get a lunch for 2 or a lunch for 4 or something later. And it's going huge, going gangbusters. And all the money goes to those venues. It's just this sort of a not-for-profit thing. And there's a bunch of us now working on this. I've got a whole lot of people helping because it takes quite a bit to run all the systems. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience.
You can't count on your son to help run that, can you, David?
He's been in his spare time. Hang on, because I think I don't want to get him in trouble with his boss. But in his spare time, he's been thinking about with a bit of the software dev stuff as well, bit of front end development, bit of design work. Yeah. Pretty good.
For those who don't know, Jack Downs, David's son, works with Jeremy and I. So
I don't want to give it away.
Oh, there we go. Reveal. Awesome initiative, David, and to support that as well, we're giving away 3 $50 vouchers today. So so for the first 3 people that tag, or would pick 3 winners who tag their local cafe or bar or other establishment. I didn't actually realise that. Extended to all these other establishments. I'll have to go to my local group. Tag them in or add them in the comments, and we will pick random winners, and you will get a $50 voucher if you do that. But cool initiative. And Shopify, I mean, how timely and relevant is that as people look to trade the bricks and mortar, and pretty quick and easy to set up as well, right?
Yeah, I've been working. It's interesting. I've been working. It was really lovely that I set this thing up initially on a different system, and then some people from Shopify actually 2 or 3 days in just came, saw what I was doing and reached out to me and said, "Do you want a hand? And we'll help you port it over to Shopify and blah blah blah." And it was great. And what we've now been using that thing in anger. Really, we've got hundreds of thousands of transactions going through. And it's great because the Shopify people are kind of learning what it's like to really run a store as well.
Yeah.
Good system. And on the weekend we just realized that we could enable the kind of click and collect sort of functionality. A lot of these little places, they can't, first of all, they couldn't sell online now, and then we said, well, actually we could set them up a little mini store of their own, and there's some add-ins to Shopify where people can book a pickup time, which allows them to basically do a curbside delivery. So imagine you could, you can't get takeaways, but you go online, buy a voucher and book a pickup time, and then this coffee shop comes and kind of gives you leaves the coffee outside and you pick it up. So a whole bunch of them are signing up for that at the moment too, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
And awesome. Look, I can see the Instillery is saying, comment on your local favorite business and win one of 3 $50 SOS Cafe gift cards. Thank you. Awesome.
Geez, we're pretty good at this streaming thing. Didn't even know we could do that. There you go.
Pretty fancy, isn't it?
Pretty fancy. Hey, David, you've obviously been around the New Zealand high-tech industry a little bit now.
You're calling me old, aren't you? That's what you just
no, experienced. You started very young.
They're gone.
I view on where the real, and with Agrotech and the other bits you mentioned, where you see the real areas of growth and competitive advantage for New Zealand businesses in the high tech sector are.
Well, and this is obviously the world has changed massively in the last 2 months. So, but actually, interestingly for us, I think in New Zealand, the areas of traditional strength for us are still going to be traditional strengths in the future. So, I've spent most of my life in the technology sector. And tech has been a big growth engine for New Zealand over the last 10, 15 years. But, still the reality is New Zealand is a large agricultural and horticultural development, supplier. And the marriage of the two things is what's really interesting. As I said, I've been working on Agrotech for about the last year or so, working across government and industry, trying to pull together kind of a national strategy for growing the Agrotech sector. And that's been really fascinating because this is an area where sort of marries together our traditional strength on the land and our the new emerging strengths that New Zealand has around technology, and we've got huge opportunity there. And I think post-COVID, and this is what discussions we're having at the moment in government is what are the areas of strength that New Zealand wants to exploit, in the future. Post-COVID, we're going to see even more opportunity there. So I would say globally, we've got some of the best technology companies in the world. I mean, not the same number or the same scale, but we've certainly got the ingenuity here. And now what we've got to do is be really clever about how we get that back out into the market and kind of keep winning customers. So that's kind of that would be my number one area. And then there's probably some other stuff in terms of games and gaming technology, digital tech type stuff as well. But yeah, that'll do for now. Lots of opportunity.
Sorry, Ryan, you go.
You mentioned the planning post-COVID and stuff. Everyone's talking a lot about the destruction to the New Zealand economy. But do you think there could be an upside for New Zealand? We're probably going to be in quite a different situation to a lot of other countries around the world.
Yeah, it's gosh, you got to be a bit careful. I'm a complete optimist, by the way. I've got to be careful. I've got to put that. You got to be careful because, of course, there's a lot of pain that people are going through and will go through, and so we've got to be empathetic to the fact that lots of businesses are going to find it really challenging. However, I do agree with you, Ryan, that actually this is a time of opportunity, and that New Zealand does have some strengths and some real advantages. And funnily enough, they're the things that traditionally were a weakness for us. We're a long way away. We're an island nation. Our markets are quite distant. For many years that was a real problem. That's actually lately become less of a problem in terms of technology can solve a lot of those problems. And right now is actually, if anything, an advantage because we have the ability, almost unlike any other part of the world, apart from maybe Iceland, to actually, eliminate the virus for the next year or two until the vaccines are out there, and build our economy at the same time. So I think we've got some massive advantages. We're also a country that's got a really strong economic backbone. It's going to be tested pretty heavily like everywhere in the world, but we're actually the fundamentals of New Zealand economy are pretty strong. And the other big advantage we've got is that everybody wants our food. We grow enough food for 60 to 70 million people, and it's high quality, high value. So those sorts of things will be sought after. So I reckon, there's lots of things going in our favor at the moment. We've just got to work out how we cleverly, and this is we at national level, but also at each individual company level, how you navigate the next 6 to 9 to 12 months to make sure that you're setting yourself up for that sort of success in the future. So I think that's the critical period, really, just to make sure that we can emerge from this and be able to exploit all those advantages.
It does feel that the situation as well has the opportunity to just accelerate a lot of stuff that people were thinking about, and whether or not that stuff like supply chain automation, using digital to get stuff to people, sales cycles, etc. That all those things that you sat there and thought, yep, I can see myself doing that in the future, and I'll think about it now. Geez, it's brought some of that to front of mind, hasn't it?
I was sort of saying this to someone else in the last couple of days too. There has never been a better time for innovation. The conditions are fantastic, like the receptiveness to new ideas, the speed that people are moving at, the way that government and private sector are really kind of working together. I mean, again, I'm an optimist, but I see this stuff as being incredible. I mean, just think about the innovation that's happened in healthcare and education in the last 6 weeks. We have, for many, many years, I've worked in the health technology, and we've been talking about wanting to do telehealth and e-health, and basically, getting away from this paradigm where I have to physically go and see a doctor in a 5-minute schedule that suits them, not me. And it was just, but we were really struggling. All of a sudden, in 6 weeks, we've thrown a lot of that away, and now we have the ability. Many doctors, and they're not doing it well yet, but they're doing it, which is to have telehealth type, health care and stuff like this. We had a call with a doctor earlier today. Similarly, in education sector, tertiary, primary, and intermediate, and all that. And my son's at high school. He's doing those classes on Zoom. So the innovation has happened really, really quickly. And I think this is one of the things about this particular time, is that we're seeing this license to kind of innovate. And hopefully, and in fact, I'm more than hopeful, I'm pretty sure it will. When we come out of the end of this, everyone's going to go, man, we moved fast. We did some pretty cool things. Why can't we be like that, forever? So that's kind of the advantage here.
Some of those things as well that, I've worked around the education sector and technology a bit, and some of the things that, we're in the too hard basket. How do you create a policy that says people get internet for free at home, and how do you do that without it upsetting the private sector, and who funds it, and how do you means test it? All too hard, right? And it's really, really interesting how quickly that became not too hard. And I'm sure the policy stuff will catch up now. And similarly, health, if it was around privacy concerns and all that kind of stuff, my view is that stuff won't sit by the wayside. It's just going to force the point, and people will have to understand how they manage those things, rather than it being, sorry, we can't do this. It's just not, we're just not ready.
Yeah, some good points you make there. I think the other related point is that one of the things we've got to be very careful of is that this period of intense change in innovation and technology adoption doesn't further alienate people in our society. New Zealand and all parts of the world, but New Zealand has a serious issue with inequity, and in many levels. Homelessness, poverty, and technology is one of the things, unfortunately, that can exacerbate inequity if you're not careful. So, it's been really good to see over the last few weeks that people realise that if we're going to all go digital for our education and get our kids online, that's great. But what about those kids that don't have internet at home, don't even have a computer or a tablet or anything? How can we quickly move to that? And there's been a number of really good initiatives, really, again, quickly to get devices out to homes, to enable the technology infrastructure to allow people to connect. So that's probably one of the key little things we've just got to keep an eye on, is that this is a period where we've got to let everybody be successful, not just those of us that can afford the technology to run stuff like this.
Of internet as a basic human right has been floated for many years now, and it kind of again just brings that back to the fore, right? And I've always been probably a little bit reluctant to go, yeah, it's a basic human right, but you've got stuff like government increasingly putting services online and making it easier and cheaper to interact with them. And there is a point at which I think you need to go, well, if anybody could access the mailbox and send a letter in, or you just check in, at which point do you just go, we've got to suck this up and figure it out?
Yeah, I think these are questions that we have to look at. Oh God, we're getting very philosophical here, chaps. It's about what does it mean to be a society, and again, this is what COVID is teaching us. Is this, and again, I'm being fascinated to see this kind of level of humanity that's kind of come back. Even though we're all at home and we're all in our own little boxes and we're talking to each other over devices, what I've perceived in the last month is how amazingly more open and vulnerable and human we've been. To the point where the first week or the first few days or week of COVID, everyone was sort of quietly telling me, shush and shut the door, and I'm on an important call. And now you go, and cause there's kids running around in the background, there's hammering, there's people are making dinner, I'm having a cup of tea, because we've just realised that just take us as you find us. So I think this is one of the things to say about the positive things that's happening in this crisis, is that we are seeing the humanity of others. As I say, what's beholden to us now is we've got to make sure that we actually make sure everybody in society can benefit from the shifts that are going on. That's my philosophy.
You mentioned the digital divide a bit and how it applies to education. How much harder do you think that it is when it comes to things like advances in medical technology?
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's a leading question, because you might know I've got a bit of experience with medical technology personally. In fact, let me.
Wow.
Here's a little something I wrote earlier. So, for those of you who might not know, basically, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer a year or two ago, and a few years ago now, and was very lucky. I'm sure making the story very short, but I was very lucky to be a trial participant in a clinical trial in the USA in Boston for a new type of medical technology, which is called CAR T-cell therapy. It's an immune therapy, basically retraining the human immune system to fight cancer. So I was incredibly lucky. The point you make, Ryan, about equity, I was lucky because not only was I able to find and convince people to let me on the trial, but I was lucky in that the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it cost wasn't the final barrier for me, thanks to lots of help from friends and Give a Little campaign and some luck. But many people don't have that kind of luck or don't have that kind of access, and for most people or many people, hundreds of thousands of dollars for medical treatment would just be out of the question. So I think you're quite right. We've got to be careful that we allow everyone to access medical technology, and we're really lucky in New Zealand that on the whole, money is not an issue. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from in New Zealand, you can get access to medicine. That's not necessarily true in the rest of the world.
And Dave, I guess New Zealand's place in innovation and technology, medical technology, rather than consuming it. Oh, there's another book.
There's another 2 books. But anyway, I'm joking. Yep, sorry.
Keen to understand your thoughts on that. Like, are we well configured, do you think, as a country to participate, I guess, in medical tech? Is that something that's too big and too hard for little old New Zealand, or do we have some advantages in that space as well?
I don't buy the argument it's too big and too hard for New Zealand. New Zealand, we're very successful on the global stage in lots of areas, and medical technology is one of them. And yes, in these little books, there are some really good examples of good medical technology. Think of Fisher & Paykel Healthcare at the moment. Think of what they're doing. I mean, they make, if you don't know what they do, they make medical respirators. Have you heard that lately? So they're obviously a really successful New Zealand business. They were in a real niche of sleep apnea devices, and now respirators, are the most sought after thing on the planet at the moment. So that's cool. And similarly, even with the technology I was talking about with gene therapy, which is what I did, there's places in New Zealand, the Malaghan Institute in Wellington, for example, who who are up there with the best in the world at the sort of genetics around gene therapy. So I don't ever buy the argument that New Zealand's too small. That the challenge for us is always that if we're going to be successful on things like this, we probably have to work out how to partner correctly, how to find the right channels kind of to market research and that sort of thing, so that we're not trying to do it by ourselves all the time, because we don't have the scale. So that's probably our biggest challenge, is that we're small. The far away thing is no longer relevant. The fact that we're small is very difficult to get over. So you partner with other people to give you that advantage. And the companies in medtech that I see being successful are the ones that really have worked out how to partner and work with other companies and go to market together.
That's presumably a role that NZTE helps with as well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. So NZTE, for that, just a quick advertisement, a word from our sponsor now, as if I wasn't, doing enough bloody advertising. At a cafe, buy a cafe voucher. So NZTE, New Zealand Training Enterprise, who's my employer, our job is to help companies grow internationally. And so we work with New Zealand businesses who are trying to export their products and services and IP. And we work with investors who are coming to New Zealand to bring their money to New Zealand for productive growth. And our job is to help companies work out the best kind of path to market for their technology. So you've got an amazing widget or piece of IP that you've developed or way of doing things, and we'll help you work out how do you find a market, who do you work with, do you partner with someone locally, do you find a channel distributor? So those are the sorts of models that we work with. So yeah, we work with about 7,000 or 8,000 New Zealand companies, and of those about 700 of them very intensively. So yeah, it's a big part of what we do.
You mentioned some of the emerging tech and innovation in that space and medical tech. How did you discern what was kind of really real versus what's fiction? There's a lot of misinformation out there, particularly at the moment.
Yeah, gosh, it's hard, eh? We're in the post-truth era. Truth is just a sort of an optional thing, or it has been. I think just as a quick aside, what's really cool is seeing how some countries are really now paying attention to science again, because that was a real worrying trend over the last couple of years, where science wasn't seen by politicians as being important. But I think now, particularly in New Zealand, the scientists and the medical people are coming through. But to answer your question, yeah, there was a hell of a lot when I was sick, for example. I was getting a lot of people suggesting really weird treatments and strange concoctions and people do find it hard to differentiate. And this is one of the challenges we get a lot of information pushed up over Facebook or whatever your platform of choice is. And it's hard to differentiate what's good and what's not good. So you've got to go back to root cause, go back to the source, make sure you're not just taking people's perspectives and opinions at face value, but you've really got to do some critical thinking. And I think that's one of the key skills that we've got to make sure that, particularly younger people than me, so you guys, for example, you've got to think about, don't believe everything you hear, and think critically about what you hear, and make sure that you can actually find out the source of the source of the Nile, as it were, to make your own sensible decision. But it's not easy anymore. There's just so much information flooding around.
Yeah, it certainly seems we've become a little bit less discerning when it comes to what we read. David, just jumping into a bit of Q&A to wind this up. First one, on the back of the COVID stuff, you mentioned Iceland and ourselves fairly isolated, but have the potential for quite good tech sectors and some other stuff. Do you see the potential that New Zealand may become even more of a bolt hole for the tech sort of Silicon Valley crew that Peter Thiel's and that, as a result of COVID, and as people go, well, if the borders are closing, but we've got a number of big fat pipes linking New Zealand to the rest of the world now, do I make a move to Arrowtown?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. New Zealand over the last few years has definitely become a destination for many people, and I'm not in that camp of dissing high net worth individuals who want to move to New Zealand. In fact, I love it. I've just we want them to come here and be productive and spend their money productively, not just buy big tracts of land and sit on them. We want them to invest in companies and stimulate the local economy, and many of them do. So I'm all for it. And I think many of the investments that we've made over the last few years are really helping. So New Zealand's broadband network is one of the best in the world. Certainly a lot better than the USA, for example, which most people will find strange. A hell of a lot better than Australia. So we've got some really good advantages there that allow people to move out of the cities like Auckland into regional New Zealand. So I'm actually really positive about that, the benefits we can. We just got to make sure we do it cleverly and we're not just selling off beach land and farmland.
Yeah, certainly could be cool to get a bit of that injection. I've always enjoyed my time travelling up to the Valley and just working with some really smart, creative people. And I think that can be a real bonus to our society.
Yeah. I've always sort of played with the idea that we'd take one of the islands in the Gulf and we turn it into like Silicon Island, so it'd be like our Silicon Valley, but it'd be out in like Rakino or something like that, keep it with bird life, but and set up like this. You've heard of Singularity University? Have you guys heard of that? Which is this incredible incubator / education place in San Francisco. Why couldn't we have that here in New Zealand? There's actually already some sort of innovation stuff happening just out of Wellington, and that's getting similar to that. But why couldn't we? And that would bring tourism as well.
Why do you think that is? I mean, we've got the means. Do you think it's the investment required, or what is it?
I think we'll see a lot. We've got appetite for it. I think, now we've got this slight complication that the borders are closed, but, put that to one side. I think we will see some, thinking like that coming down the tracks. We've really got to think collectively, and this isn't them. That's not the government or them. It's all of us have got to think, how do we be really clever in the next year or two to make sure that we're setting New Zealand up to be one of the most successful, equitable places on the planet? And ideas like, how do we become a global hub for innovation in a particular area, will be part of that. So, yeah. And then we marry together our traditional amazing strengths of our place and our people with this idea of innovation and bringing smart people to New Zealand. So Paul Callaghan, you might remember, I'm not sure if you guys know, but he said basically the secret to New Zealand's success was that we needed to be the place where people wanted to live.
Yep. I hadn't heard that, but it certainly pretty relevant today. Pretty relevant today. Another question here that is asking for your personal view, David, and says hats off, from Mike Jenkins. So this means it's probably going to lead you into all sorts of trouble, about the decision to accelerate the focus and investment on shovel-ready infrastructure projects as a priority alongside digital-centric initiatives.
Actually, that's a great question. And can I just actually firstly start by thanking Mike for sending me 2 dozen hazy IPAs to my house to say thank you for coming on this webcast. But that's just a thanks. Look, there's an interesting thing because the economic formula for recovery after a big crisis that was learnt 100 years ago after the Great Depression was that governments needed to spend money. That the only way to stimulate an economy is to start pouring. It's like pouring petrol into the tank to get things moving. The petrol in this particular case is money, and governments are uniquely in the position of being able to generate and spend money quickly. And so, in the absence of the private sector spending money, the government's got to step in until the private sector sort of catches up. So that's kind of the economic theory behind what's going on. The idea that the New Zealand government's picking is like, can we do large-scale infrastructure development, which again is not unique, it's kind of normal. I'm all for it because infrastructure in New Zealand has been, I think, underinvested in over the last probably 10 or 20 years. Interestingly, ironically, almost the government announced an infrastructure investment package only 6 months ago. So now they're going to accelerate that even further. The big challenge in being in government, in a government agency like I am, the big challenge is there aren't actually a heap of shovel-ready infrastructure projects. It's almost this vision that you've got that people are picking up some plans that they had in a drawer and blowing the dust off and then submitting them. Well, the reality is there aren't actually that many that are that ready to go. So you've got to actually, you've got to be clever that you're not just pouring a lot of money into poor ideas or whatever. So that's going to be the trick for the next little while, is making sure that those shovel-ready projects really are sensible. But if they're infrastructure around broadband or good transport or things like ports or factories and that sort of stuff, then I'm all for it. Economically productive assets.
Yeah, cool. Hopefully
How
there
would you
are.
vote for me to be the minister of something? Because I think I've got this all sussed.
Well, not just the Prime Minister.
Oh no! I don't want. I want to actually get my hands dirty.
You want one of the shuttles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool. Hey, David, look, thanks a lot for joining us today. Really interesting chat, and hopefully we get some few more comments through and can maybe answer some questions after this and by flicking them through to you. Just a reminder to anybody that's watching as well, if you comment with the name of your favourite cafe or whatever it might be that you can find on the SOS business website, we will be giving away 3 times $50 gift cards for that. So all you need to do is comment, and we'll randomly pick the winners and chuck them in the comments below tomorrow. So do that. It is supporting a good cause. And David, yeah, thanks again for joining us. Any last thoughts?
No, I think it's great. I think what you guys at the Instillery are doing is great here. I mean, and this isn't blowing smoke up anyone, but what's been interesting is to see organisations like yours that have focused on cloud productivity as an area of business innovation, if you know what I mean. Like, you're bringing cloud productivity. You guys are ideally situated over the next little while to lead us through some of the stuff. You know, I was talking to someone from Xero today on a similar vein and said, look, actually, this is a point where the private sector, particularly those in the technology sector who understand distributed workforces and models of working remotely, this is your opportunity to shine. So jump in, you know, start leading, being thought leaders, teaching the rest of the laggards in the economy about how to get yourself into the cloud. So yeah, as I say, this is not just about blowing smoke, but I genuinely think that organizations like the Instillery have the opportunity to become thought leaders over the next couple of years, and you guys should emerge from this crisis as a key part of how businesses think about how they go to market. Make that 3 dozen beer. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I think we definitely excited about the opportunity to help Kiwi businesses think about how they get back up, and not back up and running the same way, but what's next, right? And what's this torture? What it be? Because we've learned a shit ton in a very short period of time about all sorts of things we thought we could never do. We didn't think we could send, for ourselves personally, we didn't think we could send 200 people to work from home and have our service desks operate that way, apart from under massive duress. And we have, and it's been different, but it's worked. So I think the opportunity to take lessons out of that and help ourselves, I guess get back up and running. Yeah,
that's good, and lots of us are learning. I think the big thing, the final word from me probably is, don't emerge from this crisis saying how can we get back to where we were. That's the wrong way to think about it. You emerge from this saying how do we be better than we were before, and learn what we've learned, and strengthen ourselves by having been through what we've done. So I think that's the attitude we've got to have.
I'm hearing, don't everybody get back on Auckland's motorways when we're in level 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Awesome, David. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and awesome initiative with SOS Business as well. And hopefully we can get those vouchers away to some and help out a few people in a small way.
Yeah, it's great. No, I appreciate it. Thanks very much, guys. Nice to talk.
Cheers, David. Thank you.